Shooting on the move is straightforward these days. This footage, for example, was captured with a DSLR and a gimbal. But it wasn't always this easy. Cramming the necessary equipment into a vehicle presented a real challenge for the BBC when they wanted to cover events such as horse racing. And the result was a string of ingeniously modified trucks and cars. (1953) saw the first appearance of what would become the BBC's Roving Eye, although initially this was termed Travelling Eye. The first vehicle was a converted Daimler ambulance with a Marconi Orthicon camera mounted on the roof. The truck contained a Band 5 Vision Link and a generator to allow it to operate and broadcast on the move. Obviously it was very heavy, and quite a bit slower than your average racehorse off the line. The part of the BBC which operated these vehicles would become known as the Outside Broadcast Unit, and in addition to horse racing, it would cover all manner of outdoor events, with vehicles being used as static camera positions, as seen here for example covering the annual Oxford and Cambridge boat race. Roving Eye 1 proved the concept, even if it was a bit heavy and slow, so Roving Eye 2 was given the green light in 1957. 2 Carrier Bantams were selected to act as the eye and the support vehicle. These would provide a self-contained filming unit that could travel quickly from place to place. RE2 was put into service covering events such as Churchill's funeral and the horse racing of the day. Plans for 2 more Roving Eye units were approved, but there was a problem. The trucks were still too heavy and slow to effectively cover the horse racing, and in addition they were too big, often blocking spectators' views. The solution to the size problem at least was to transfer to a car. In 1960, a Series 3 Humber Super Snipe estate was chosen. Of course the necessary generator wouldn't fit inside, so it had to be towed. This was based on an Enfield bike engine and was quite noisy. The heavy equipment inside the car was also too much for the rear axles, meaning regular replacements were needed. Around this time, another truck-based Roving Eye was constructed, RE5. This was based on a shortened Bedford TK chassis. This vehicle carried 2 Fernse KCR40 colour cameras, while the rest of the Roving Eyes had been monochrome Marconis. It is unlikely RE5 ever captured any roving shots, however. By 1971, a replacement for the Super Snipe was needed, and the Outside Broadcast team procured a Citroen DS Safari for the job. The Citroen had the benefit of its hydropneumatic self-leveling suspension system, which should keep a very smooth tracking picture over bumps, such as the grass at a racecourse. There was, of course, still that same old problem, that the equipment was too heavy. When the system is overloaded, it maintains its height by pressurising and stiffening the hydraulic shocks. This keeps the car at the right height, but you lose that damping effect of the system. Nonetheless, it was probably the best car on the market for the job at the time, and a second DS Safari with a more powerful engine was bought shortly after the first. The car was equipped with an EMI 2001 colour camera, and in 1980 this was upgraded to a Philips LDK5 tube camera. In 1982, the DS's replacement, the CX, was procured to be the next colour Roving Eye. The LDK5 camera was carried over, and although a towed generator was still required, a reliable Honda unit was now in operation. Unfortunately, the trailers still went through wheel bearings over the bumpy terrain, as the CX was capable of covering ground at over 80 miles per hour. Drivers had a mammoth task maintaining the right pace during a race, and couldn't be too slow or too fast so as to influence the horses. As a side note, another Citroen was modified for the BBC for camera work in 1990. Although not a Roving Eye, this 2CV was put together to cover the London Marathon of that year. By 1992, Citroen had replaced the CX with the XM, and the BBC again followed suit. By this time, technology had advanced far enough to do away with the towed generator, and the car's equipment could be self-contained for normal roving operations. This time, a Sony BVP T70 camera was up top. In 1993, the CX car was transferred to the BBC's Pebble Mill studios for work on Top Gear. The XM continued its work for several years, and in the mid-1990s, remote-operated ball-type cameras began to be trialled. Health and safety was no longer satisfied to have an operator on the roof at the speeds these cars often did. The CX also came back and was chopped into a sort of pickup configuration to accommodate the batteries for the remote cameras. In 1998, the reign of the Citroens gave way to an all-wheel drive Volvo V70 estate. The 4x4 capability vastly improved the ability of the car over the boggy grass of racecourses. The final incarnation of the Roving Eye came about in 2004, when the BBC purchased a V8 Land Rover Discovery 2. This vehicle had the benefit of a high roofline, which allowed the camera to get above the railings during the races, and the V8 power plant and 4x4 capability allowed it to traverse the grassy racecourses with ease. Unfortunately, the BBC sold off the outside broadcast division in 2008. The Discovery soldiered on with new owners SIS, including covering the 2012 Olympics, until SIS closed down outside broadcast completely in 2014. Fortunately for us, that isn't the end of the story. A team led by Paul Elkington has produced a faithful recreation of the Citroen XM Roving iCar, with fully functioning camera equipment. This car tours shows such as the NEC and is a real treat if you ever get to see it.